In a small, remote village, nestled between two mountains, there lived a young monk named Kaito. The village temple, where Kaito had grown up, was surrounded by ancient trees, and a clear stream ran past its gates, filling the air with the sound of flowing water. The villagers often came to the temple for wisdom, and Kaito, though still in training, was eager to learn the ways of peace and compassion. But there was one thing Kaito could not bear: another monk, Jiro, who constantly found fault in everything Kaito did. When Kaito swept the temple steps, Jiro would criticize his technique. When Kaito prepared food, Jiro would scoff at its simplicity. It seemed there was no end to Jiro's sharp words, and with each remark, Kaito felt anger boiling within him, threatening to spill over. As the seasons passed, Kaito's resentment grew. He found himself avoiding Jiro, but even in his solitude, his thoughts raced with frustration. His mind replayed every insult. His chest tightened with anger, and peace seemed an unreachable dream. One day, Kaito's master, an elderly monk with a calm presence, noticed his unrest. "Kaito," he said softly, "you have the face of someone in battle." "I feel as if I am, master," Kaito admitted, his voice edged with frustration. "No matter what I do, Jiro mocks me. How can I find peace when all I feel is anger?" The master smiled gently. "There is a story of a river," he said. "When heavy rains come, it grows wild, overflowing its banks. But when the rains pass, it returns to its natural state. Your mind is like that river. The rains of judgment and anger have swollen it. Would you like to learn how to let the waters recede?" Kaito nodded eagerly. The master began to teach him the 7 principles of mindfulness, each one a stepping stone toward calming the turbulent river of his mind. The first principle: non-judging. The master led Kaito to a clearing in the forest, where wildflowers bloomed in every color. "What do you see?" the master asked. "Flowers," Kaito replied. "Some are bright and beautiful, but others are dull and withered." The master smiled. "You judge what is beautiful and what is not. Yet all the flowers grow under the same sky, and none of them strive to be anything other than what they are. In mindfulness, we observe without judgment, accepting each moment as it is." Kaito reflected on his judgment of Jiro. Had he not done the same, labeling his actions as bad and hurtful, while seeing only his own hurt? That evening, Kaito practiced observing his thoughts without attaching to them, letting them pass like clouds. The second principle: patience. The next morning, the master took Kaito to a stone garden where young monks were painstakingly raking patterns into the sand. "See how they work slowly, without hurry," the master said. "Patience is mindfulness in motion." Everything unfolds in its own time. Kaito watched the monks rake the sand with care and dedication, realizing that his own impatience had fueled his anger. He wanted Jiro to change quickly for the situation to resolve itself. But now, Kaito began to understand that patience was required, not just with Jiro, but with himself. The third principle, beginner's mind. One afternoon, the master handed Kaito a broom. "Sweep the temple steps." Kaito frowned. He had swept those steps 1,000 times, and each time Jiro had criticized him. But the master saw his reluctance and said, "Approach this task as if it were for the first time." Beginner's mind means seeing things with fresh eyes, free from the weight of past experiences. Kaito swept, feeling the bristles of the broom move against the stones, the dust rising and settling. He imagined he had never swept before, and in doing so, he found a strange joy in the simplicity of the task. Jiro's past remarks seemed less important, like old echoes fading in the wind. The fourth principle, trust. Days passed and Kaito continued to practice. One evening, while meditating by the stream, he spoke to the master. "I struggle with trusting myself, master. I fear that my anger will never leave." The master looked into the flowing river. "Do you trust this stream to reach the ocean, even when it twists and turns around obstacles?" "Yes," Kaito replied. "Then trust yourself in the same way. Just as the stream follows its path, you will find yours. Trust the process, even when the way is unclear." Kaito nodded, feeling a quiet confidence settle within him. He realized he did not need to force his transformation. He could trust that in time, his anger would diminish, like a stone worn smooth by water. The fifth principle, non-striving. One day, Kaito came to the master in frustration. "I have been practicing every day, yet still I feel the stirrings of anger when Jiro speaks. I try so hard to be calm, but I fail." The master shook his head. "In mindfulness, we do not strive to be something we are not. We do not aim to become calm. We simply observe. When you stop striving to push your anger away, you will find it begins to dissolve on its own." Kaito pondered these words. He had been fighting his emotions, trying to banish them through sheer will. But now, he chose to sit with his anger when it arose, acknowledging it without even trying to change it. Slowly, he felt its grip loosen. The sixth principle, acceptance. In time, Kaito began to accept that Jiro's behavior might never change. Acceptance is not resignation, the master explained. It is the understanding that life is as it is, in this moment, and we must work with it, not against it. With this acceptance, Kaito found himself less burdened. Jiro's comments still stung, but Kaito no longer resisted them. He accepted the situation as it was, rather than wishing it were different. The seventh principle, letting go. The final lesson came one evening as Kaito sat by the stream once more, watching the moonlight dance on the water. He realized that he had been holding on to his anger like a heavy stone, carrying it with him wherever he went. But now, he was ready to let it go. Closing his eyes, Kaito took a deep breath and imagined the stone sinking into the water, disappearing beneath the surface. The relief was immediate. In letting go, Kaito felt lighter, freer, at peace. The next morning, Kaito encountered Jiro again. This time, when Jiro criticized his work, Kaito felt the familiar spark of irritation. But instead of reacting, he smiled softly and bowed. He no longer needed to defend himself, nor did he need Jiro to change. Jiro, taken aback by Kato's calm, said nothing more. And from that day on, the tension between them faded. Not because Jiro had changed, but because Kaito had. Kaito had embarked on a journey through anger and frustration, through judgment and impatience, only to discover that the true path to peace was within himself all along. In practicing the 7 principles of mindfulness, he had learned to calm the storm of his mind, and in doing so, had found peace, not just with Jiro, but with all of life itself. And so the river of Kato's mind flowed freely once again, carrying him gently toward the ocean of wisdom.